WECU 1570 AM, W298AX 107.5 FM, Winterville,
Winterville, North Carolina.
Motivations with Glenn.
I can hear that noise. I can hear that noise again. It sounds like something. Maybe heartbeat picking up on through the mic. Maybe my heartbeat picking up.
Good day, ladies and gentlemen. Good day, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you for tuning into Awesome Radio 107.5 1570 AM WACU. You are tuned into the Glenn Johnson Motivations with Glenn and Apostle Jacqueline Cullins. We are continuing our topic of discussion, bringing to awareness month, but we're focusing on survivors of stroke, as brain injury. Two guests today. And I join on the Sunday evening brain injury support group meeting. We have Ed and Sam that's going to be joining us. Here's my co-host, Apostle Jacqueline Cullins, and she will introduce the two guests. We'll begin our topic of discussion.
Hey, Dr. Glenn, and to our listening audience on today, we are glad to be here with you on today. We got a great
show coming up,
and
we are very
glad to be here on today. We're thankful and grateful. I always say that it's a good day, and it is a beautiful day outside today. Sun is shining and just looks like it's just beautiful, beautiful, beautiful springtime. That's all I can say. It is just a gorgeous day out there. Right amount of wind, the right amount of sun. We're glad to be here, and we're glad for our topic again on today. That we're talking about we're still in Brain Injury Month. It's right.
Right.
Brain Injury Month. And so today we have two guests today, and we're very glad to have them on this platform on today. And our guest names are Sam and Ed. And so I just want to introduce to you Sam and Ed, who were both stroke survivors. I didn't want to say the word stroke victims. I want to say survivors because they are survivors and not victims.
That's right. That's right. Ed shaking his head. Ed agrees.
They're both nodding. As I had to be careful of how I phrased that. They're both stroke survivors. And so we're going to turn the mic over to them and let them introduce themselves, and both one after the other tell us about themselves and about their particular survival from the stroke. I'm just very excited and interested to hear. I learned something new on the last few shows, and so I'm sure that I'm going to learn something new on this one as well. Dr.
Exactly.
Glenn?
Yeah, and we'll have them introduce themselves and get a little brief description of their story because we have 7 minutes before we go to the first break. Then we'll have 4 more 10-minute talk time. So without later to do, let's go to Ed and Sam, who will introduce themselves at this time.
We can start with you, Ed.
Yes, I'm I'm Ed, and I'm a survivor, and I had some brain trauma. I had a stroke while I was recovering from the brain surgery, and I was paralyzed on my right side, and I ended up spending 3 weeks in ICU and 2 or 3 weeks in rehab learning how to walk again.
Yeah, exactly. That's almost similar to what I went through. I had to go to rehab, learn how to walk, talk, and everything all again. I was 50 at the time, but doing everything like I was 2 years old because my body forgot it all. And could I ask you, Ed, how did you acquire your stroke?
Well, I had a problem with my brain that we didn't know I had. I had what they call a carotid cavernous fistula. In layman's term, it's the vein and the artery in the back, in my head behind my left eye grew together, and so there was a hole in between, and the blood was passing through, not the way it's supposed to. And they went in there to fix it, which they did. And in the recovery, hours later, I had a stroke. And luckily, I was in the hospital. I was in ICU recovering, and they noticed it, they spotted it, and they took care of it. But because I had a stroke, it paralyzed my right side of my body. Again, I'm okay now, but
Good. Yeah, I'm glad for you. And let's go to Sam because I know Sam has a remarkable story. And Sam, I think he was former law enforcement, federal law enforcement, if I'm not mistaken. Is that correct, Sam?
Yeah, so sorry, Ed. I didn't know if you were going to continue. Okay, so about 4 years ago, I had a TIA, the transient ischemic attack, and they are not supposed to leave any residual after they occur. Usually within a couple hours, they clear up. I went back to work. Everything seemed pretty good. And the following year, I had another one, and noticed that I had some weakness on my right side, and I didn't realize the other cognitive and memory issues. I actually went back to work about 3 days later, and about 2 weeks after I started back, people were saying, Sam, you were in a meeting last week and you stated this. And I couldn't remember the meeting. I didn't even know if I attended a meeting. So I ended up going back to the doctor that day, and they noticed that they gave me some tests for a couple of days. Noticed I did still have weakness on my right side. I had some cognitive impairment, and short-term memory was almost non-existent. And then I went out on leave at that point, and really, I thought about this, but really it was the next 2 years that my recovery it took a while. So it isn't like, I could start therapies and get it all together. It actually took a couple years for me to notice that, hey, you know what, I don't have to write every single thing down. So that's really what occurred, with me.
Possibly have 2.5 minutes before we go to the first break. You have anything to offer to our two guests?
Yes, I was just listening to both of their stories, and they're just vastly different. Especially Ed, who had his particular injury. His injury was discovered while he was in the hospital, and I think that's a very awesome thing, is that you didn't have to try to figure out what your symptoms were. You were already there for another procedure. Is that right?
Yeah, that's right. I was having some what they considered migraines, and they were localized to my left side, right behind my eye, and they couldn't see them. I don't know how many scans, CT scans or MRIs they did, because we went to the emergency room twice, and they they finally found, the culprit. But that was aside and apart from my stroke. The stroke came on during the recovery part of the brain surgery, and the traumatic part came in where they had to crack open my head and drill a hole in it to relieve the pressure because I was bleeding inside my head.
Yeah, the same thing occurred with me with my brain injury. I had a big tube still on the head to relieve the pressure and the fluid. We have 1 minute to go before we go to the first break. After we come back from the break, I would like to ask our two guests if they have anything to share with our listening audience to encourage and inspire them or to make them feel comfortable in an emergency situation with a stroke. So that'd be good to reach out to our listening audience to help them in their time of need. Jackie.
Yes, and we know that on our last broadcast that North Carolina is one of the leading states with strokes, brain injury from strokes. And so that is one of the things that we want to remind and take note of. We're getting ready to go out on our first break here. And if you want to call in and be a part with these wonderful guests that we have on today, you can call in and be a part of the show. The number is 252-756-2008. And you can call and be live if you have something you want to share, or even if you know our guests and just want to send a shout out. This is Awesome Radio, and we'll be right back in a moment. Awesome Radio.
My name is Jayla, and you're to see to my papa, Glenn Johnson, on the radio.
CPR is an emergency response technique to help keep blood circulating in a person who has suffered cardiac arrest. CPR can increase chances of survival for cardiac arrest victims outside a hospital by 2 to 3 times. If you find yourself near someone having a cardiac emergency, call 911 immediately. If they are unresponsive, not breathing, and do not have a pulse, perform CPR while you await for emergency personnel to arrive.
CPR STAT. We are a staff development company and is the gateway to your successful training journey. We are located at 2405 Charles Boulevard, Greenville, and with training facilities in Raleigh and Wilmington. If you individually or your company need CPR training just starting out or to be updated and compliant, we're just a phone call away. 252-470-6165. Learn more about us at cprstat.com. There you can book a class, see all our services, and the training schedule. CPR Stat. 252-470-6165. We will train CPR at your location or one of ours in Greenville, Raleigh, or Wilmington. All classes are by appointment only and are offered Monday through Saturday. CPR Stat 252-470-6165. That's 252-470-6165.
Hello, my name is Hayden. Thank you for listening to Awesome Radio, 107.5 FM, 1570 AM, WECU.
Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen, to the Glenn Johnson Show. Motivation with Glenn. And since we have two guests, we're not going to do too much talking because we want them to reach out to the community with information that's make them more knowledgeable about surviving a stroke with the brain injury. So without further ado, let's go back to Ed and then Sam.
Okay.
Go ahead, Ed. Just share a little bit more about your story.
Okay. Anyway, as I was saying, I had a stroke and it paralyzed me, and I had to relearn how to walk. And I guess at the first week, I was in a coma for a couple of days, and then I had to learn how to talk, and then they had to help me how to in rehab how to walk. And my wife did a lot in helping me learn how to write. And I tell some of our friends that we're in these meetings, head trauma meetings, that we have to keep on fighting and learning how to write and do things that that we have to learn again, you know. And it's kind of like being a kid again, you know. I'm going to be 69 soon, and it felt like I was 10 years old again, or, you know,
Yeah.
learning how to walk and talk.
Yeah, and because I want to ask you, how difficult was your therapy? Did you go through that smoothly, or was it very difficult?
Well, looking back, it was what it was very easy, but it was very hard for me at the time because I had lost all my strength on my right side. Even my
Yeah,
left side was kind of weak. So just walking was a struggle. Just I couldn't even feed myself, hold a fork in my right hand, you know, and I'm right-handed. So it was really hard for me, but I
right.
kept on persisting.
Now, Sam, could you share a little bit more about your story? And then Apostle, but I have a couple of questions for both of you. So here's Sam, ladies and gentlemen.
Yeah, thank you. Again, thank you for having us here today. What I'd like to kind of bring out first, and that is when I started therapy and my neuropsychologist was talking to me, I felt like I was alone. I was the only one in the whole world that had a brain injury. And through his guidance and through support systems, I found out, wow, I'm not alone. But that encouraged me to move forward. And I think there's a couple pieces to help people move forward. Your support system is so important. I give my wife and my family so much credit
Exactly.
because they didn't ridicule me. They didn't say, you're never going to be able to do this. On the contrary, they said, you know what? We're going to push you to do this. And they encouraged me to try to do more than what the doctor was even talking about in therapies. Um, and because of that support system, it helped me and encouraged me to move forward. And I think that's a good thing about sharing the different stories about strokes is let people know that, hey, life is not ended at all. It may change, it may go slower, but it's not over. And
Yeah, because
you've
yeah,
got to
because I
keep,
think I'm sorry. Yeah, because I think that encouragement that comes from your family is because they know more about you than the doctors do. Do you agree?
yes, yes, sir, absolutely. And that's a great thing. So,
Yeah, I thought so. And we have 5 more minutes to go. So here's Apostle Jacqueline Cullins Williams that has a few questions for our guests.
Yes, I just wanted to make sure, Dr. Glenn, that we defined a stroke on this particular broadcast. I think we just jumped in and we just started talking about it, but a stroke is refers to an attack on the brain, and a stroke happens when blood flow to part of the brain is cut off. And so we needed to just define what it is. And also, before we leave the broadcast, we will give you a few symptoms of strokes. And we also heard from both of our guests some of their symptoms of what they told us. And I don't know if Sam told us what his symptoms were, but I know we heard them from Ed that he began to feel that he was paralyzed on one side. Sam, can you tell us what your symptoms were?
Yes, ma'am.
How did you know
Um,
that you were having an issue?
yes, and actually, my wife pointed it out. She goes, "Why is your right side of your face drooping so bad?" And I didn't really feel it. And then I walked around the table and I almost fell over. My balance was gone. So my
Yeah.
right side was very weak. My face was drooping, and the balance was just terrible. So those were the things that said, you know what, we need to go to the ER.
Yeah, that's right. Just like our class last week, shared the same thing, similar to what you're talking about. But with this gentleman, when we asked him, how do you know he was having a stroke? He said he didn't know. He was actually asleep. He had a stroke in his sleep. When he woke up, he had similar symptoms like Ed just explained. But they got him to the hospital in time because there's an acronym called FAST. The faster you get to the emergency room, the better your recovery will be, Jackie.
Definitely. And that is exactly why I was asking so other people could hear exactly what it is that the symptoms were to be able to recognize them. And I just wanted to say this and throw it in. I'm always teasing Dr. Glenn about the benefit of having a woman and a wife. And I thank both of you for letting us know that you had these wonderful people that were women in your life that helped you. And one literally recognized the stroke. And so I just want to give a shout out to your wives on today for being there and helping you because there's just nothing like having a good woman in your life. I'm always promoting women and just lifting us up because I don't think we always get the good recognition that we deserve. And so I want to say that's an awesome thing, Dr. Glenn. You need to get one of those.
Yeah, I'm allergic. I am. I am allergic. I have other people that support me. And I also want to say I appreciate Ed and Sam at the 5:30 virtual support group meetings, North Carolina Brain Injury Association itself with Susan Fuel. So these two guys always on 5:30 Sundays, sharing what they have to offer, and it's excellent. When I asked Sam earlier about his experience in law enforcement, did his brain injury or stroke interfere with his duties as being a law enforcement, federal law enforcement officer, if I'm not mistaken. But we have 1 minute, so after the break, I'll get Sam to talk a little bit more about that. Jackie?
Yes, and that is a great question. That's a question that we can ask for both of them. Did it affect their jobs? Or if Ed was working at the time, if it affected his employment at the time at all. So Dr. Glenn said we'll do that when we come back. We could have gotten in one of those.
Yeah, we have about 50 seconds. 50 seconds before the break.
Yeah, so I'll be asking a few more questions about, certain things like your cognitive functions and those type of things, memory. I know that stroke can affect memory, and I know it's very important. And then in our last broadcast, I learned that you couldn't drive, that you were mandatorily not able to drive after having a stroke. And I want to ask both of you when we come back about that. Did you have restrictions and did you have to go back and recertify to be able to be on the road again? So once we come back from our next break, I want to know about your driving and what your restrictions were after you had the stroke. Dr. Glenn, you look like you had something to say.
No, I didn't. Go ahead.
Okay, we're getting ready to go out for another break, and we'll be right back with you in a few moments, right after this announcement. This is Awesome Radio. We will be right back with you in a moment. Awesome Radio.
You're listening to Awesome Radio, WECU 107.5 FM, 1570 AM. Christian media with the spirit of excellence.
The church was excited about installing a playground that could be used for the children's ministries of their church.
Pastors, take note. Attorney David Gibbs Jr. has some legal advice you'll want to put into practice. Here he is with today's Legal Alert.
As they began planning, someone asked this question: how do we solve the liability we face if one of the neighbors enters the playground and gets hurt when the church is not meeting? That's a great question. Pastor Jared called us at the Christian Law Association And our attorneys talked about the options of building a fence and posting a no trespassing sign. But the most helpful action he could take was to call the church insurance company and be sure that his insurance is up to date and the insurance company's requirements are all met so they have insurance on the facility. Remember, you can be legally liable for damages if it's unprotected and no one is watching to supervise the playground area if neighbors come on it. Also, unsupervised church children out there after services or before services, you can be liable for what's happened. Check local zoning codes, but most of all, make sure you have your insurance up to date and be sure you meet their requirements.
That's attorney David Gibbs Jr., and you've been listening to The Legal Alert.
Pastor James D. Corbett, Lady Sarah Corbett, and the Greenville Community Christian Church family would love to see you at our annual Family and Friends Day on Sunday, March 30th during our 8:15 and 10 a.m. services. Both services will be filled with uplifting praise and a life-changing message from Pastor Corbett. After our 10 o'clock a.m. service, we will have fun activities for the young and the young at heart. And we will have lunch for all our family and friends. That is Sunday, March 30th during our 8:15 and 10 o'clock a.m. services at Greenville Community Christian Church, 1104 North Memorial Drive, Greenville, across from the airport.
We're back. You're listening to The Glenn Johnson Show. You can reach Glenn at glennjohnsonshow@gmail.com.
Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen, to the Glenn Johnson Show. Motivations with Glenn and Apostle Jacqueline Cullins Williams. We have our two guests on, so I don't want to talk too much, take too much time talking, because we're going to get information from our two guests. Apostle has a couple of questions for them, but I want to ask our two guests if they don't mind sharing their location, because if you want to, I have a specific question for Ed. So Jackie has questions for our guest. Here's Apostle Jacqueline Cullins Williams.
Yes, and I wanted to ask both of our guests, did you suffer from long-term memory loss? I've read here that the effects of the stroke depend upon how large it was in the brain, how large of the area was affected in the brain. So do you have, or did you struggle with memory loss, and still to this day, are you still struggling with memory loss? And I'm going to start with Ed first.
Yes. Excuse me. Yes, I have troubles with my short-term memory. And like one of our members told me, it's hard to get long-term memory if you can't start with a short-term memory. But I do remember old stuff. But new stuff, like if my wife tells me something, sometimes it goes in one ear and it comes out the other one, and it doesn't register. And I kind of make a joke of it that now I have an excuse not to listen to her and do things that she tells me. But it is like that. Sometimes, excuse me, sometimes you don't remember things that were talked about. And that could be anywhere from 10 minutes to yesterday. And sometimes it does work. You know, I don't know what caused it, you know.
Wow. And, you know, I think sometimes with being married, we sometimes have selective hearing anyways. We choose sometimes not to listen, and it's not a memory problem. All right, Sam, we're going to pose the same question to you. Did you suffer from memory loss, or are you still struggling with it? Was it short-term or is it long-term for you?
Definitely a short-term memory loss. And it's interesting because like the year before my stroke, I've lost a lot of that. My first year after the stroke, I can remember bits and pieces. It has improved over the last 4 years, but my wife, if she was here, she would say, yeah, it's improved some, but she's still running behind me. Well, Sam, you said that you were going to do this. And it's like, oh, I forgot. So, you know, it's better. And again, I have such a great and patient wife that, she doesn't really beat me down because I continue to forget. But there are times that she'll make a joke of it and say, I'm sure you forgot what I told you or something like that. But, yeah, it short term, it's not as bad as it was after the stroke, but I still have issues with that.
Wow. And I wanted to pose the question to both of you as well about driving restrictions. Did you both get driving restrictions where you were forbidden to drive for a certain amount of time and then had to go back and do the test and things all over again? Ed is saying no.
No, I no, I didn't have any restrictions, but I put the restrictions myself because I had a brand new truck, and so I didn't want to crash it or hurt somebody. And the first 6 months, I couldn't walk by myself, so I was still using a walker and help. So the first year, I wasn't really driving, and once I was a little bit more stable and was able to walk and move on my own, I my wife took me on a ride in the neighborhood to see how I was driving. And little by little, I went a little bit further and a little bit further, and I got my driving skills back. But I'm still kind of, I, I, put it this way. I feel like a 16-year-old with his first driver's license. That's how I feel. I'm scared and I'm very aware of where I'm going and what I'm doing. So in a way, it's kind of good, but it's,
But,
I
but
don't
I
know.
think that's very good of you, Ed, because you imposed a restriction on yourself to prevent anything from happening to you or someone else on the road. So that's very commendable. What about Sam?
Yeah, I did not have driving restrictions, but it was several months. I don't remember, probably 5 or 6 months that I didn't want to drive because I couldn't process things fast enough that I was comfortable enough to drive. So, like, if someone was changing lanes in front of me, it took me so much time to process it. So, I actually pulled my driving back myself because, again, I couldn't process fast enough to be
Yeah.
safe on the road.
Now, Sam, Ed, are you in California?
No, I'm in Rock Hill, South Carolina.
Oh, okay. I'm sorry. I thought you were California because I have one document or information related to California. So,
Well, excuse me, I did go see my mother and my family in San Diego, California, and that's where I had my attack, and I went into the hospital in San Diego. So that's probably where you're getting that California deal.
okay, so you're in South Carolina. So we have another brain injury survivor, as you know. He's down where you're located. I don't know if you're familiar with him, but we'll talk about that on the Sunday afternoon support group. We have 2.5 minutes before we go to the break. Jackie.
Yes, I just wanted to give a few signs and symptoms of a stroke. And one of them is sudden numbness or weakness in the face. And we heard that from one of our guests on today. Confusion and trouble speaking or difficulty understanding speech. And I was going to ask both of our guests if they both had that issue with, I know one said the face was drooping, so I'm sure there were some difficulty of speech. It said trouble seeing in one or both eyes, trouble walking, dizziness, loss of balance, or lack of coordination. And it talked about sudden severe headache with no known cause. And I know that Ed did tell us that he had a headache. And that was one of the signs that he had that he was having a stroke. So I wanted to ask both, did either of you have trouble seeing as a symptom of your stroke? Ed, you can start.
Well, you got to remember, my stroke came in on my recovery of my brain surgery. So none of this applies to me because I was comatose, or I was recovering from a brain injury. So I don't know what happened to me, and so forth. The headaches were attributed to my carotid cavernous fistula. So, I not like Sam, he was walking and stumbling and stuff. I didn't have all those. Mine were in the hospital, so they got to see it somehow.
Yeah. Now we have 1 minute to go before the next break. Then I think we'll be back with our final 20 minutes. Is that correct, Jackie?
Yes.
All right, you have anything?
Yes.
Or you want to take us out?
Yes, and I will, as we get ready to go out, we've given that. Dr. Glenn, did we have those words for fast, a paper for fast again?
I did print it out, but I visited the church and I spoke about it. I gave the pastor that copy that I had.
Oh my goodness, we need that now. And I think I may have it, so I may be able to look it up over here. Possibly, I have to just find it here. But we're getting ready to go out on another break here. And again, if you would like to call in on today, you can call in and be live on our show. If you had any questions for our guests, that phone number is 252-756-2008. Again, that phone number is 252-756-2008. This is Awesome Radio. We'll be right back with you in a moment. Awesome Radio.
Keep it locked right here to the Glenn Johnson Show.
A Touch of God's Presence Ministries, 1300 Dickinson Avenue, Greenville, presents a weekend of healing and deliverance services, and you are cordially invited. Beginning Friday, March 28th, 7 o'clock p.m., with Apostle Rosa Jackson from Macon, Georgia. Saturday morning, March 29th, 10 o'clock a.m., there will be a natural healing seminar hosted by Apostle Rosa Jackson. Contact for more information, 252-695-9007. And Saturday evening, March 29th, 7 o'clock p.m., there will be an apostolic confirmation service facilitated by Apostle Rosa Jackson, as Pastor Valeria McLeod Daniels will be confirmed as apostle. Sunday morning worship, March 30th, 11 o'clock a.m. Dr. Bridget Newton will close out the weekend of healing and deliverance services. This is all happening at A Touch of God's Presence Ministries, 1300 Dickinson Avenue, Greenville. And for more information about this weekend of services, beginning March 28th through March 30th, contact 252-695-9007. A Touch of God's Presence Ministries, 1300 Dickinson Avenue, Greenville.
60 seconds. Here's KP O'Hannon with your GFA Minute.
I'm sure you heard this statement. For the tree missing the forest. We are blinded more than we know by the small problems or our difficulties that we deal with daily in our lives. And the call of Christ, lift up your eyes and see the harvest field, untold millions that wait to hear His glorious name, and hope and salvation. May we think about them and obey Christ.
Make a difference in a lost world. Get your free copy of KP's book, Revolution and World Missions, at gfaminute.org. gfaminute.org.
Hi, my name is Tracy. Thank you for listening to Awesome Radio, 107.5 FM, 1570 AM, WECU.
Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen, to the Glenn Johnson Show. Motivation with Glenn and Apostle Jacqueline Cullins Williams. We have two guests on today that are survivors of a stroke with a brain injury. So we have 20 minutes left. If it's all right with my co-host, I'd like to give it 1 10-minute to Sam, the other 10 minutes to Ed. Jackie.
Yes, I wanted to ask the question, did the stroke have an effect on your family bonds? How did the stroke affect your family? And we can start with Ed and then with Sam.
Well, my wife and I, we were close before, and I think we're closer now. There's a lot more of a bond. Um, she senses a lot more about me. Sometimes when I'm not feeling well, she could see it, doesn't have to ask me. And we rely on each other a lot more. Um, I think the love between us is it was strong before. It's stronger now, and I give her credit for helping me recover. There was exercises that she would do with me during my recovery time, and she wanted me to be the Ed that I was, and I wanted to be the Ed that I was. So she helped me uh, recover. So I give her a lot of praise.
That is absolutely awesome to see that you strengthen. And I ask that question because sometimes, sickness, the vows that are made in sickness and in health, everybody likes the health part, but there's actually people that become abandoned or their relationship suffers greatly when it is sickness or there's something that happens. Everybody doesn't adjust the same way or doesn't react the same way to pressure and traumatic events or just life. It's just life, an event that life has thrown. And a lot of people, they don't handle it well. So that's why I asked that question: how did it affect your family bonds? And I'm going to pose that same question to Sam, if you could tell us a little bit about how it affected your family.
You know, really, my story is much like Ed's in that I could not have asked for more support from my family. Um, they treated me like the old dad. So my kids were, you know, joking with me the same way, would ask me still to do the same things, and not say anything, that would put me down if I didn't do something right or if I didn't remember. So as support goes, my family, my wife and my kids were just absolutely fantastic with it.
That's good. See, sometimes you feel me. Do offer support and help to yourself. We can't forget about the family part. That's referred to as caregivers. So I'm glad both of you have caregivers in your life to help you with your situations. Jackie, we have 6 minutes before the break.
Yes, I wanted to ask both also, had you made any changes, after certain events happen, a lot of times people change their diet, they weren't exercising before and now they start exercising. Did this event and did this stroke help you get yourself together in a better way afterwards than you did before? Are you more conscious of things? Let's start with Ed.
Well, um, yes and no. I've I've always been conscious of my weight and my caloric intake because I had a grandfather who had a diabetic stroke when I was 7 years old. And that played a lot on my mind. And I got to tell you that when I was in the hospital recovering, and I knew that I was paralyzed once I realized it, I didn't want to be like my grandfather, and I was going to do everything in my power to try to recover. And my wife helped me. And so, yes, I'm more conscious now of what I eat. Um, and even though I was already, but I've never smoked. I did drink some, alcohol, but I completely gave up alcohol and sugars. So, I did change a little bit.
Wow, that is awesome. And so now we'll pose the same question to Sam. Did you, change your lifestyle somewhat after having this stroke?
Indeed, I did, because they believe that what's happened is pieces of plaque have broken loose out of my arteries, and that's what caused the TIAs. And when I had my first one, we actually changed our diet, my wife and I. Uh, we changed it to a Mediterranean diet, and we probably eat that 90% of the time. So that was one big change for me, is going to that kind of diet. As exercise goes, I used to jog a fair amount before I had a stroke, and now I have some problems with my legs. So I don't jog, but I did find that I could ride recumbent trike, so I could keep some exercise up and go that route. Um, so yeah, there were some pretty big changes after the stroke.
Wow, I can believe that, but a lot of people they don't start moving or making the changes until after, and they know they need to make them before. And I was glad to hear how you spoke about your wife and how she's doing this particular diet with you or this lifestyle change with you. You know, because it's something that you have to change your diet and you're unable to eat certain foods, and then you have the other one sitting over there snacking on the chips and eating the fried chicken and dropping the crumbs while you're eating something else. And I believe that that is very, very hard to do there. That is a very hard thing to have someone that not be on one accord with you. And I do believe that husband and wife should be together in a lot of ways, you know, especially if you're eating separately and both of you are eating differently. It's hard, you know, if one has a better looking plate than the other one. I mean, a healthy plate is good too, but we all know that sometimes the fattening, you know, things and the sugar and things that we shouldn't have, that those things end up tasting very good to us, whereas, you know, tasting a little bit better sometimes than the healthy food does, you know. But you got to make yourself like it. You got to make yourself begin to and say, this is good and it's good for me. You know, it's just a mindset change. You know, the salty, sweet, crunchy things, they're all usually bad for us. And then whatever is alive and growing are the things that we need to, you know, embrace more. And those are the things that are not quite as tasty all the time, especially in kids.
Now, Sam, I know Sam does a little bike riding. I don't know if that's across country or what, but Sam, can you explain to us about your three-wheel bike riding?
Oh, thank you, Dr. Glenn. Yes, so September, October of last year, uh, my all my doctors agreed that I could ride a recumbent trike. And to bring awareness to brain injury, I rode the trike from Jacksonville, Florida, down to Key West. It took 19 days, and I don't know how many people I was able to talk to and share the whole concept and what is brain injury, and it was great. So again, real quick, I don't want to take up a whole bunch of time, but you know, I would never ask for a stroke,
Sam, we're
but
going to have to go out for one more break. If you could just hold that thought until we come right back from this break. This is our last break here, and we'll be able to get you back on to hear that. Because, I mean, I heard about that trike, and I'm like, wow, I love them. I love looking at them, and I want one, but I don't know if I can do it. But we're getting ready to go out on this break, and we want you to come right back with us. This is Awesome Radio, and we will be right back with you in a moment. Awesome Radio.
My name is Jayla, and you're to see to my papa, Glenn Johnson, on the radio.
All right, that was a short break. Looks like we're right back very quickly. And so, Sam, we're going to let you go ahead and finish what you were telling us as you were talking about the trike and you were telling us about your experience with having the stroke.
yeah, again, I don't wish a stroke on anybody, and I wouldn't ask for it for myself. But you know, there's been some good things about the stroke that would have never happened if I had not had it. And part of that is looking at all people differently. Uh, I never thought I was super judgmental, but then after the stroke and I started actually looking and feeling with other people, I figured that, you know what? Yeah, I was still pretty judgmental. And that's one thing that I've learned is don't judge a book by the cover. You know, the heart is where it's all at. And I was able to share so much with people who knew about strokes, a brain injury, and I talked to people who didn't have it. So it was a great time to share with others about brain injury.
And I can see and understand that, how certain, sometimes in the ideal or in our mind, we can think that a certain body type or a certain race or a certain weight, is what should be having a stroke. And a lot of times it's not that is not always a factor. There's sometimes people that are overweight and they never have a stroke. And then there's some that could be thin and you would think, wow, they shouldn't they shouldn't be a stroke candidate or they shouldn't be able to have a stroke. And those are the ones that can have it. So it's not necessarily about, any particular weight or race or gender. It's about, our eating habits sometimes, and just sometimes it's just the body and the way the body functions. And so that is one of the things I'm glad that I heard you say here. And I do agree that sometimes we can look at people and we can judge things or and I just say this, I don't know if both of you, I don't know where you are in your faith or if you have any, but I know that we all need mercy. And but by the grace of God, there go I, or there goes someone else. And I also know that no matter what you've come through or how you are after, there's someone that wants to be in your shoes, that would love to change places with you because they had it worse. It looks like Sam has something to say. Do
Oh,
you have?
yeah. Real quick, uh, if we can talk faith for just a minute, okay? And that is, I would never want to have walked the walk of my recovery of the stroke without my faith in Jesus Christ.
Wow. That's my philosophy. I don't want to go through anything. I mean, I didn't even want to get up this morning without it. I work with children and I don't even want to go anywhere to work without him. So I can't imagine trying to face anything else without having faith. It is such a powerful thing to have someone to lean on that's greater than ourselves. And so I do agree. I think it's a great thing and a wonderful thing to have, I say, someone to lean on. And so now Sam has started me to talking because I love to talk about faith. So I'm not going to get in too deep because we're almost at the end of our broadcast here. We have, it looks like, is that 5 minutes, Dr. Glenn?
Yeah, about 6 minutes.
About 5 or 6 minutes. So I want to give the floor and let our guests, finish it out for us. I know that it made you become more sensitive and more reflective. Any event that happens in our life that causes an impairment causes us to be more sensitive and reflective about life. Can you tell us about how you appreciate things more now after than you did before? There has to be a change because whenever there's a brush, then there has to be something that brings about a change in our life. So I'm going to talk to Ed. Do you appreciate life more now after?
Yes, yes, I do. Like Sam and Dr. Glenn probably say, when they first had this stroke or whatever health problem, you felt like you were all alone. When I came into these groups with Sam, I was looking for an answer of what my life was going to be from here on. And I wanted to recover and didn't know what I was going to be able to do. I, excuse me, I imagine I'm about 95% of what I used to be. And that's as good as it's going to get. And the doctors did everything they did. but that's as far as it goes. We had to go searching for our groups, like Sam and Dr. Glenn, and commiserate what we've gone through and what we have to look forward to, and see if we could help each other. And now I look at other people, and I feel for them a lot more because I've gone through some things, and I not that I was cynical or something, but I feel for them more. I have more feelings about people's health and well-being. So I feel like a family now with Dr. Glenn and Sam and all our members and all our groups now.
That's right, Ed, because you know what? I don't look at what I used to be. I look at what I can be moving forward. That's right. Not what I used to be, but what I can be.
That is awesome. Sam, do you want to give us a little bit more as we're getting ready to end our broadcast, and let us
Yeah.
know how you became more reflective or more thankful? I mean, and look at life in a different way after your event. Sam?
Yeah, I am definitely more thankful for each day that I'm alive. Uh, I understand fully it is only a gift, is the reason why I'm alive. And my sense now is to help other people understand that we can move forward. It doesn't matter what disease. We're really concentrating on brain injury, but even with brain injury, we can step forward. It doesn't matter how big a step, but we just keep moving, and we help each other keep moving. Where before the stroke, I would not have said that.
Yeah. Do you believe it was God's grace?
Amen.
Amen.
Amen. It was God's grace. Jackie, we have 2 minutes to close out the broadcast.
That is awesome, and that was awesome to hear. I just had to hear how how it affected you and made you, more that it helped increase you in a greater way to become more thoughtful and in different ways to look out for other people. And I actually appreciate hearing you say that you had to look for your community, because in anything there should be a community. Even I don't care what it is. If you are doing a certain thing, even in a certain job, I feel like there should be community. There's a community of those of the same type of people that are doing the same type of job, or that have the same type of injury, or that have a support group for every. I believe in support groups. I do. I absolutely do. So I am just very grateful to hear your story and to see. And I wanted to say, especially to Ed, who was paralyzed on one side, and seeing you today is a great encouragement to the people, and that you can live and you can survive and you can heal after having a stroke and even being paralyzed. Those are great. That's a great to see you moving and saying I'm 95% of what I used to be. That's an awesome thing, and I'm grateful to see your movement. It's a great encouragement, especially you, Ed, but also you, Sam, to see how well you're doing after having a stroke. So we are glad that you came on with us today, and I want to say thank you from the bottom of our heart. We enjoyed your story, and I'm thankful for a few laughs on here as well. So I'm going to turn it back over to Dr. Glenn as we're getting ready to end our show. Thank you again for coming on.
And I just
Thank
want
you.
to personally thank both of you for joining the show today. I really appreciate it. I think we got a lot of information out to the public. So, therefore, I'll talk to you later. I'm going to email you because I have something for you. So thanks a lot for joining us today. Jack, you want to close it up in 5 seconds?
Yes, thank you so much for tuning in. We'll see you next week.